I'm Jeffrey Colon, head of brand studio at Microsoft Advertising. We're back on the floor of the Connect Learn experience here at Cannes Lions, joined by my close friend, Lindsey Slaby of Sunday Dinner.
Thanks for having me.
I love interviewing you, by the way. We did this last year. Here at Cannes, there's always a discussion around business models. One that we like to talk about is brands and their advertising model. How should they be looking at it over the next year or two? Especially with some analysts thinking there's going to be, some turbulence in the economy.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of attention focused now into actually what the media model mix should be. And that gets back into what was last year's theme, which was huge, was transparency, waste. I haven't heard that mentioned at all this year. I think because a lot of people, that's gotten slightly cleaned up. Privacy seems to be the big issue, but I think that we are pulling back a little bit in terms of digital spend, which isn't what all the headlines say, but I think that's what's happening on the sheet. I think that in terms of advertising, we're still thinking about, if I was looking at my model, it's still a lot of traditional, a lot of brand partnerships that are sharing audiences together in interesting ways to think about how you can connect as a media channel from that perspective. And I think what's changing the most is really how brands are thinking about the people who are helping to deliver on their advertising needs. And that's kind of the big conversation. And at Cannes, it's especially interesting because all the brands are here, and there's more brands, I think, than have ever been, is one of the things I'm understanding. And creative agencies, and how are they all starting to work together to deliver on that media model? It's really the big conversation happening.
Now, 40 years ago, a holding company decided, let's split creative from media buying.
Right.
That model still it's divided. What should we be moving towards? Should we be converging that again? Should we be thinking of an entirely new model?
There are many questions in one.
There's a lot of questions
Okay.
here, but what do you think is the sort of the best operating model you've seen that gets the most creativity out of agencies so they can deliver for their clients?
One of the things you hear really strong creatives say is the best idea that we ever activated always came from a media idea. And that is super important because I think media isn't us just buying tons of tonnage and views. It's really changed. It can be much more creative. And right now, to be able to communicate and break through, you have to have media inserted with the creative minds. And we all know this. It's just taking a little while, I think, for the larger companies to make that change. But the smaller upstarts, the way that agencies are designing their business model, if they had a blank sheet of paper, media is inserted in the beginning of that conversation. People who are constantly scouting for interesting partnerships, brand deals, opportunities, and ways that we can think about non-traditional ways to tell our stories. So I think media is coming back up. Let's see, the other question you had, small, nimble, AOR.
Yeah, small, nimble versus big. I mean, there's a lot of people who think big works because you can actually take the holistic arrangement of a brand. So it's like if a brand's like, we need this, oh great, we have those services.
I got a lot of thoughts on this, and maybe some are controversial because things are changing. So we went through, people in not just advertising, but are unhappy working in traditional work environments. And so they're breaking off and starting their own things, and they're small. And ad agency land, there's a lot of small teams who are starting off, and they're very specialized, but they're trying to take on the same projects. So there's 3 or 4 people still trying to do a $2 million project, et cetera. And yes, they can deliver on that creatively, but there's a lot of things that go into delivering for a big client. And I would say over the past year, a lot of those teams have fallen short on the creative services, understanding the access to data, measurement, and all the other pieces that make agencies great. And so some of those models are falling back. So you've almost seen clients go, well, this is too hard. These teams don't have all the things I want, so I'm just going to go back to the bigger models again because they have everything under the roof. But then you just have tons and tons of different teams coming together, and maybe they're not all kind of A-list. I don't know the right way to say that, but they're a little bit more mediocre because they do so many different things. So it's a real challenge, but I think it goes back to the client saying, okay, we need to take a little bit of a stronger lead role in what we want, and then potentially we drive how we put the different puzzle pieces together. And that way you can work with this emerging ecosystem of so many different types of talent, not try to make them be something that they're not, and put them all together in the right way. And I don't know if that's the right answer, but they're there are so many different teams out there. It's really a challenge, and clients go through these lengthy processes of evaluating all of the teams and going, pros and cons are here. If we hire this team, we need to beef them up here because they don't have this. They might not have this. So do we hire for that? Do we tell them to hire for that? And it's getting really complicated. And at the end of the day, sometimes people are like, maybe I just want to go back to a one-stop shop. But none of these really solve the problem of the fact that you can look for different types of agencies. I don't care the size, the shape. We still need to get back to thinking about what are we trying to do? Why? Why do people care about it? And then figure out the right people to put around the table. And to me, I don't know what that agency model is, but it's all about finding the right people. And they could be at a big place, small place. It's all about having open mentality to how we bring them together.
We're talking to Lindsey Slaby, the founder of Sunday Dinner, here on the Disruptive FM podcast, live at Cannes Lions. Now, my next question, you were on a panel that we hosted here, Microsoft Advertising hosted at the CLX, all about innovation in the agency of the future. And a lot of it was really on how do you take better care of your people? It wasn't so much around technology. I mean, what is some advice you would give so that we think more about wellness and being in the current state that we're in?
There's two pieces to, I think, taking care of your people, and one is definitely, and it's any company, it's not just agencies, but our industry's hard. You have long hours, you're constantly being demanded to come up with something new and amazing, and that just puts a lot of stress on you. It's hard to find the right outlets to turn to with coworkers versus bosses. So I think more and more companies in general are trying to find solutions for helping in this respect. And so the creative industry is massively being impacted by this. And the second piece, I think, in terms of taking care of people is training them. And I spoke a lot about the fact that you hit a certain level and you used to think that you could go to your company and they were going to upskill you and move you to the next level. But less and less of that is happening. And so we need to make a focus back on, I think, learning and development. And how does that work? And how is it not just a quick offsite on something, but like dedicated plans? And learning is both the technical skills and then the personal skills that I need to be a better manager, deal with things that are going on in the world, understand people are starting to voice emotions a little bit more at work, and what's the right way to manage those.
I love speaking with you. We love having you on these shows. Lindsey Slaby, founder of Sunday Dinner, here on Disruptive FM. Thank you so much for joining us here at Cannes Lions.
You've been listening to Disruptive FM with Microsoft's head of brand studio, Jeffrey Colon.